Hi, I'm Rebecca Gibson, and I'm here talking to Anne Aleckson, who is Australia's leading channel and CEO of Mystery School for Women. The reason why we've come together today to have this conversation is for you to be able to hear Anne channel infinite intelligence who refer to themselves as all that is. I'm going to ask some common questions that we as humans always ask throughout our lifetime. And prior to all that is answering those questions, we're just going to have a little discussion with Anne about how she came about channeling, what it's like to channel infinite intelligence and consciousness called all that is, and how she feels about her work and what she's sharing with us, the rest of the world. Hi, Anne.
Hello, Rebecca. Thank you for helping me with this.
You are welcome. This is so exciting for me because I love talking to all that is. I love talking to you. I actually love talking to you more, but I love talking to all that is. So this is very exciting. So first of all, I just want to ask, when did you start to realize that you were channeling consciousness that wasn't just in Aleckson?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I'll tell you the history of it in as few words as I can, because I could go on for a very long time. So it was about 13 years ago I started to look for what was missing in my life. You know, life wasn't going as great as I wanted it to, or even as I thought it should have been. And I was struggling through my work and my relationship and all of those sorts of things that we do. And I started to wonder about what else was possible. So I started to read books, mostly about happiness, and I started to do some of the things in those books, like meditate. And I also learned about raising your vibrational frequency. So I started to raise my vibrational frequency. And as I did that, meditated and raised my vibration, I started to hear a voice in my head, like it was inside me, and yet it felt like it was outside of me. It felt like this wise person, wise old man, actually, if I'm really honest. It felt like a wise old man. And when I saw an image of that voice, it looked like a wise old man. It was very strange to me. And so I kind of accepted that I was hearing this voice, and then I started to feel that something was wanting to speak through me. It was very, very odd for someone who'd never been involved in any kind of spiritual work before. I'd had my palm read probably once in my entire life. So it wasn't an arena I was comfortable with or knew much about. So I started to look at it, and I came across the Abraham-Hicks material. This was about 12 years ago. And I started to look at that to see what that was all about. And at some point, in fact, it was the very first book of theirs that I read through the recommendation of Dr. Wayne Dyer. I picked up one of their books and I carried it with me for 6 months, knowing that I wanted to read it, but never finding the time to read it. I even took it on a plane for 14 hours to Las Vegas for a conference. And
did you read it?
No, I came back and I still hadn't read it. But then I got really, really sick as soon as I got back. And after I recovered from that sickness, I mean, this was literally, I think I spent about 4 days in bed, sweating and being sick. Couldn't do anything else. But when I started to come out of it, I picked up that book. The very first page I read, which was Jerry's introduction, I started crying, and I thought, what the hell's wrong with me? This is just weird that this would affect me like this. But what I did was I started to follow it. I started to find out that there were other people that did this as well. I just had a knowing at that point immediately that this was something that I was capable of doing. My ego mind would have none of it. Who do you think you are? You can't do that. That's for special people and things like this. But there was also this deep knowing, almost like a soul knowing, that this was what I was going to be able to do. And not just me, but many, many, many people. So my first experiences with it, some people that I knew who were also channeling over in America, because I didn't know there was anyone in Australia. So I went all the way to America to find people. They held space for me, and they told me to record everything as I was doing meditation, to record myself meditating. I had experiences where this amazing information would come through in a very scary sounding voice that wasn't me. And then at the end of it crying and laughing all at the same time, thinking I was absolutely mad, but also knowing that it was perfect and it was part of my life. So there was a long period of getting used to it, of being okay, and certainly it took a long time to share it with anyone who wasn't also doing the same thing.
So what do you think the turning point was that you actually then started to share with other people what was happening?
I think I was really blessed in that I had that group of people who held space for me, because they did it so unconditionally, and it just was whatever it was. And so I was working as a happiness coach at the time, and I do a program every year between Christmas and New Year to help people close off the one year and step into the next year. And it was in one of those calls that I was speaking, and the channeling just started coming through me very easily and quickly. And so that at the end of the call, you know, some of the people there, they knew that I did this, but they'd never experienced it. They kind of was like, oh, you channeled then? Did you hear you were channeling? So yeah, I came out without really planning it. But I don't think you can plan it.
No, coming out of the channeling closet.
Yes.
As we've discussed, I have started recently voice channeling a particular energy, and for me, she comes out in a very strange accent that I've never spoken in before. I feel like I'm drunk. I question myself. And I'm just wondering, how was it like for you in the beginning? Because I know how you channel now, and you just sound kind of like Anne, but a different wisdom kind of comes out of your voice when you're channeling. But how was it? What's the brief look at what it was when you first started to how it is now?
So different, so different. You know, when I first started doing it, it was a very thick accent that came out as well, interestingly enough. And I've pondered this many years, as you can imagine. How come now it's not so weird sounding, and how come before it was so weird sounding? And my conclusion is that it is to do with the vibrational frequency of myself. And because I've been refining my frequency over the years, because my job really is not to sit and channel, my job is to raise my vibrational frequency, to refine my vibration, which brings me closer to the energy of all that is. So that's what I think it is. But let me tell you, when I first did it, and there are clips on YouTube if anybody's interested, there are many clips of me. I had a radio show back then, and the accent was really quite strong. You know, someone once said to me that I sounded like I was Russian, another person said Chinese. To me, it just sounded weird. And I still hear that voice, by the way, when they're coming through. I still hear parts of it, not as thick as it was, but I still hear it like that, you know. And there's a particular way that they say vibrational frequency. And I find sometimes when I'm really deeply in a channeling that they will say it that same way again, and it always surprises me. I don't know if I can say it myself now, but I'm going to try. They kind of say vibrational frequency, which kind of throws me every single time. But
that's a different vibration, isn't
yes.
it? It sounds completely different. Vibrational.
Yeah. So, yeah, when it first started, I mean, you know, this weird accent was coming out. But on top of that, like you were indicating, you feel a certain way. I used to describe it as feeling as though the top of my head had been lifted off, and I'd been poured full of liquid love, which felt like honey, you know, like as if I'm one of those jars of honey where you take the lid off and the honey just gets poured in, and it's just this blendedness with just oneness, I guess, really is the feeling of oneness.
And is that feeling that that physical feeling that you get still just as intense as what it was when you first started channeling?
It's not all the time as intense, because I do a lot of what I call light trance now. In other words, I just slightly move my consciousness out of the way, because, again, this is why I bang on all the time about your only job is to raise your vibrational frequency. There, they just said it the way that vibrational. Your only job is to raise your vibrational frequency, because as you refine your vibration, you get closer to God, so to speak. I like that expression, closer to God. You get higher and higher and higher and closer to those levels where the energy that you speak from comes through. So there's not so much a difference anymore. However, if I'm in a conversation with a client that's been going for 20, 30 minutes, I start to, because the vibration coming through gets stronger and stronger and stronger, then I revert back to my vibration needs to be lifted more in order to make it smooth again. So it changes from moment to moment. But because I do it mostly in this way now, it comes through almost, as you say, almost as if it's me. But people who know me always know when it's not me anymore, even if it sounds exactly the same. Yeah. You can feel the difference, you can see the difference.
One thing I've noticed that people will see when we do speak to All That Is that Anne giggles a lot whilst she's channeling. So you will notice that. I just want you to know she actually doesn't think what's coming out of her mouth is funny. So can you just explain to us why you giggle while you're channeling?
Sorry. It just feels so damn good. Look, that's the only way that I can put it. If you can imagine having your head lifted off and being poured full of liquid love, It feels joyful, it feels blissful, it feels... Look, I'll share this with you. When I've been known to giggle while I'm having sex, it's the same feeling. It's that orgasmic feeling, you know, much to the disgrace of a particular boyfriend at one stage. He had his own problems, but it's just such a joyful feeling. It's blissful, it's orgasmic, it's everything's right with the world, so to speak. So when they're coming through me, when they're speaking through me, because they literally, I invoke them and they come in.
I like that, you invoke them. That sounds good.
And they come in, and they're coming right now. I can feel all my goosebumps. I get to feel like they feel, like this energy of all that is, this energy of oneness, this energy of perfection, of everything's right. How can you not giggle?
Yeah, well, that's true. All right, so now I can notice that you're starting to haze out now, so All That Is about to come in. Just before, what advice or words of wisdom do you have to anybody else who feels like this is something that is happening for them or is going to happen for them, or that they're interested in being able to do this channel physically? What advice do you have?
Well, first of all, I do want to say that absolutely anybody who chooses to can do this. It's a choice, like anything else. It's a skill, like, you know, a child will go and pick up a guitar and say, I want to learn how to do this. And that's what we do. I want to learn how to do this. So you go and you learn how to do it, and you give yourself the space, and you find people who will support you through it, not people who won't. Don't ask them to. Don't expect them to.
No, I'd imagine there's plenty of people that don't support it.
Absolutely. But then they don't come into my sphere of knowledge, because I keep my vibration, and this is the next point, continue to work on raising your vibrational frequency, being the most compassionate, the best person that you can be, and keep striving to be better than that, to sorry.
Here they come.
Just constantly striving to be your best self and to connect with your higher self. And our evolution that we're going through is all about each and every one of us, and I mean every single one of us on this planet, having a vibration that's risen enough that we can connect with our soul self, our higher self, and start really, we talk about light workers being here on the planet. We're actually here evolving into our light body walking on the planet in human form. So if you strive to be in your light self all the time, through whatever work you're doing, whoever you're in front of, all of these sorts of things, that's how you play your part in changing the world. And that's what we're all striving for, isn't it, really? To change the world, to make it a place that we want to be here in, without starving children, without war and all of those sorts of things. So when my guides came through, I just want to quickly share this. I was, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? As we all do. And I learned a process of speaking to my guide so that I could find out this information. And it turned into one sentence, which encapsulates my purpose as a human being and the purpose of all that is. World peace through inner peace, one person at a time. I take charge of the one person at a time because I can physically stand in front of people and share things that will help them to release struggle and feel peace. And then they can go and do that with other people as well. So one person at a time, it's all it takes, and it starts with me. I had to do it for me first. That's
true. And this is going to be one of the questions that I ask all that is when they pop in. So, are you ready?
Yes, you can ask your question and I'll just close my eyes and get myself out of the way. I just kind of move myself a little bit out of the way.
Okay, so from here on in, I'm going to be asking questions to all that is. And the answers are going to be coming from infinite intelligence that refers to themselves as all that is. This isn't coming from Anne Aleckson, although you see Anne speaking. This will be her channeling. So are you ready now?
We are here.
Hello. I'm so blessed to be able to do this. I'm so excited.
And we are so blessed to be able to do this with you as well. You see, we are all that is, and so are you. Each and every one of you are all that is. You are simply in a different form than we.
So that leads into my very first question. Who are you?
We are all that is, as we have already discussed. But we will share more on that.
Yes, please.
We are all that is. We are all that ever has been and all that ever will be. In other words, we are the essence of creation. We are everything and nothing all at the same time. And we mostly want to say to you that you are exactly that as well. You are just in a manifested form of human being, but we are all that is, and so are you.
I noticed that you use the word we a lot. For humanity, we tends to, it tends to be separation, we, but I know that you're all about unity. So why is it that you use the word we?
Well, when we use the word we are referring to the fact that there are many of us here, you see. Many of us, in other words, what we're saying to you is that there is not just one being here speaking to you through this human form. There is the owner of the human form, and there is all manner of other forms that you are familiar with that have walked this earth perhaps once or twice, and so many more who have never walked this earth. In other words, they are all the consciousnesses of every being that's ever lived, ever. Not just in this dimension, but in all other time, space, and dimensions, you see.
Mm-hmm. So where are you?
We are here. And yes, we are being cheeky, of course. We like to have a little joke, as you are aware. We think that it's important to make jokes and make light of it because we want to impress upon you that spirituality is not as serious as some of you make it. It's very true. Indeed, the more you laugh about it, the higher you will vibrate, so to speak.
So, okay then. I'll word it this way. This is a three-dimensional consciousness for us humans here on Earth. Where are you coming from in terms of your consciousness speaking? Are you coming from another dimension?
Well, we are coming from all dimensions, you see. This is why we say we, and it's a collective. We are coming from every dimension that exists, and even those that don't yet exist, but will in the future. And all of those dimensions that did exist that no longer exist. In other words, we are present in every particle around you, in every light photon that is around you, in every cell in your body, and every breath of oxygen that you take. In other words, we are expressing to you as the essence of all that is. There's no being that is attached to all that is, you see. There's no form. It is the form of the atmosphere that you live in. It is the form of the stars that you gaze upon at night. It is the form of the earth that you walk on, who is also raising her vibrational frequency with you see, so that you might all rise together. But we know that's going to pertain to a question further down the track as well.
Well, right now, why did you choose the particular form that you're speaking through now, Anne? Why Anne?
Because she has been here many times before, you see. She is an advanced soul who has been working on this particular journey right here, right now, through every life she's ever lived before. Now, we're not saying that she's any more special than anyone else. What we're saying to you is that each and every one of you has an essence or a soul that has lived many lifetimes in this dimension and in other dimensions, whereby you have learned to get yourself to we're going to call it a party, you see, because right now on this planet, there's a party going on. We're all gathering, we're all gathering, we're all gathering. That's why there's so many more of you than there ever has been before, because you're all coming back to take part in the party, to have a ball at the party, so to speak. And you're not just here for your benefit. You're here for the benefit of Gaia. And she's not just here for her benefit, she's here for the benefit of you. And you're not just here for the benefit of you and Gaia, you are here for the benefit of all that is. In other words, as you evolve, and you are, and as your planet evolves, and she is, we also evolve. All beings in all states of dimension and time, or no time and no dimension, are also evolving, you see.
Yes, I do. So now that we've addressed that we humans, if we're coming here for a party, why are you guiding? It doesn't
feel much like a party though, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. So this leads me to ask you, why are you guiding us at this time?
Because you asked. Because you are the creator beings of this planet. You are indeed the creator beings of everything, of all that is. You are part of all that is. You are not separate from all that is. And as a part of all that is, you wish to evolve. And you've found yourself as the human self stuck a little bit in your evolution. And so you have sometimes gotten down on your knees and said, please help us. You've prayed to God, or you've called to Allah, or you've called to Buddha, or whoever it is that you believe is all that is. You have called and asked for assistance through your actions, through your struggle. In every moment that you struggle, you say, surely there must be more to life than this, just as she did. And so we come to answer that. And we come to answer that because of this very important thing. You are all that is. And you deserve everything that you desire. And if you're not living it, then we're going to come and nudge you along a little bit to help you, not to help us. We are not here to serve ourselves, and yet we are also serving ourselves through the service to you, you see, just as you are serving us through your service to yourself. We are all one, you see.
This leads to a question that gets asked a lot amongst humanity. There are different names for what I'm going to say, but is there a God?
Indeed, there is. And if you look in the mirror, you will recognize the God, you see? Because again, we say to you, you are not separate from God. You are not separate from all that is. You are not separate from your brothers and sisters. You are all one. There is only one, the one that you sometimes call God. Sometimes you call it all that is. Sometimes you call it the Akashic Record. Sometimes you call it the source field, whatever it is that you call it. You see, when we came to this one, and it was prearranged this way, but she has a aversion to labels. Indeed, if you asked her the name of someone she'd been speaking to, she will have forgotten. She will only see them via their vibration, you see, because labels is what gets you into so much trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Good or bad, heaven or hell, right or wrong, God or the devil, so to speak. Not that there's any such thing from our perspective.
That was my next question.
We know. We are, of course, tapping into that, you see. But essentially what we're saying to you is if you can drop the labels and stop judging things as good or bad, right or wrong, black or white, all of these things, then you will come back to oneness and you will recognize that it is only your perception that makes it so.
So why is it that humans have such a fascination with the devil and hell? What is that?
Well, you see, when you come into human form, you make an assumption that there is something wrong with you because you're no longer all that is, or what you know yourself to be is all that is. In other words, this liquid, vibrating energy that you truly are. Now you take on a heavy form, you see, and as you put the heavy form on, you also put on struggle and beliefs about yourself that just are not true, but which will keep you grounded on this planet. We want you to understand something. Nothing has ever gone wrong. Nothing has ever gone wrong. It's not going wrong now. You are living the experience that you need to live in order to move through to the next experience. In other words, you're in the part of evolution where things would appear to be going wrong so that you might be so compelled to make it better. In other words, to raise your vibration and to tap into your true self. You see the perfection of that?
Yes.
Indeed.
Speaking of moving on to the next experience, what happens to us humans when we physically die and we leave our human form?
Well,
where do we go?
You return back to all that is. Or you return back to the source field, or you return back to God. You make God bigger, so to speak. You return back to your essence.
Is there still a separation of souls, so to speak? I know that we're all one, but do we still have the separate identities, personalities, if you will, without ego?
Well, you always will, you see, and this is, and it's very complicated to explain, but what we want to say to you is that when we are coming through this one, we say we because there are always more than one, and sometimes one will step back and a stronger energy, or the energy that has the knowledge that is required, will step forward. She has been described as being an island where we come and go as the need requires, you see, depending on who's in front of us. And we think that's the best way to explain it. And we think that's the best way to then say to you, yes, you retain all of your soul's knowledge. In other words, if you were a nuclear physicist, so to speak, in a human form, then if you were in front of someone who was channeling and you required a conversation with someone who is also a physicist, then that personality aspect will come through, depending, of course, on the channel. Some channels choose to only have the one personality aspect come through. And yet, many of them are also having the same experience. They're just calling it something different. This is why the labels are important, or not important to this one.
When we do pass over as humans and our souls return to all that is, what happens to our ego?
It looks around and it says, what was I thinking? We knew you would enjoy that. But seriously, our ego drops, you see. Now, we want to address something because we think this is leading to, or there will be questions here about, oh yes, but what about when my grandfather comes through and he seems like the same grumpy bastard he always used to be? That would be because it is drawing on your remembering consciousness to bring through how you remember that being to be. You see, we serve you from where you stand. If you believe that your grandfather is going to come back and be the same grumpy old thing that he always was, or be able to tell you where your grandmother's ring is, all of these sorts of things, then that's what you will get from us, you see.
Yes, I see.
Indeed.
I see. I do say that to my clients all the time. This is consciousness. It's not actually the person standing in front of me. It's the consciousness within you that I'm reading.
Indeed. Indeed.
So, is there a heaven?
Indeed there is. And it is within your consciousness in your highest vibration.
So everybody can return to heaven. Our highest consciousness is in our vibration if we choose to always follow love-based frequencies.
Well, rather than labeling it love-based frequencies, what we would like to say to you is come back to what we always are banging on about: raise your vibrational frequency. Raise your vibrational frequency to the highest it can be, and it's different for each and every one of you, as it should be. And from that place, you can create heaven on earth, because when you raise your vibrational frequency, you drop the labels, you drop the assumptions, you drop the things having to be a certain way, and you drop the human perspective. And that's the difference, you see. If one perceives negative as being hell and positive as being heaven, you get to choose. You get to look at a situation and say, this feels really hard and bad to me. How can I make it something that is indeed here to serve me? In other words, if you look in every moment and say, life is happening for me, so this thing that looks yucky, how can I make it look like it is serving me? Yes?
Do you have any tips for us humans on how we do raise our vibration, that we can create our own heaven here on earth?
Well, we would suggest, of course, in every moment that you remember these words: you are all that is. You are the creator of your reality. You are the one who gets to choose in every moment to feel good or to feel bad. And if you find yourself feeling bad, then look and find out why you're doing that to yourself. Clean up whatever vibration you need to, and then come back to true self. You are all that is. You are all that is. And you are perfect. You've never been less than that. You were born that, and you still are.
Is it possible for us humans with our ego to move past fear and not have fear enter into our consciousness any longer whilst we're still a human?
Well, you see, it's not about not having fear never enter your consciousness. Again, we go back to what we've just been saying. It's about your perception. You see, it's only fear because you look at it and say, that's fear. If you simply looked at it and said, that's an interesting experience that I'm having, and then decide what to do from there, you see. In other words, we know that it's a well-known saying, feel the fear and do it anyway. You see, perspective is everything.
Well, that is very true. Perspective is everything. So the biggest question that I have lastly is, at this current time in humanity, we can see what people refer to as very dark-based energies seem to be escalating and growing in power. And it is causing devastation across humanity. It's also causing devastation across Gaia. We aren't treating the earth well. We aren't treating one another well. We are not following the guidance of love collectively. What is it that we can do as individuals ourselves? I know that you're going to say raise your own vibration, but what tips or messages do you have for us in order for us to feel empowered as an individual, that we will impact on the collective consciousness of peace and add to the love and add to the fear-based violent energy to dissipate?
Indeed, indeed. And we understand, because we work very closely with this human being, we understand the looking outside of self and seeing that the world is falling apart, watching the news and seeing that the world is falling apart. And by the way, we're not saying that you shouldn't watch the news. We want to be very clear about that. There comes a point when it's imperative that you are aware of what's going on your planet, as so many of you are. But we say, as you have predicted, your job is to raise your vibrational frequency and then to mind your own vibration. In other words, what we're saying to you is do all of the things that you need to do to raise your vibration. In other words, don't look at the things that hurt you at this point in time. Avoid the things that you're fearful of at this time. Be aware of them, but don't focus on them, is what we mean by avoiding them. Be aware of them, but don't focus on them. Be aware of them, but don't focus on them. What we want you to understand, and this is another perspective, is that every single thing that you would call dark energy that's happening on this planet at this time is here to do its job in your evolution. In other words, it is also serving. It is also serving, because in you looking, the collective, those of you collectively who are working on raising your vibration or being better people or changing the world, those of you, when you look at those things that appear even darker than they ever have before, your light gets brighter. Your determination gets stronger. Your ability to change the world gets tapped in more. You understand? You become more when you look at this and desire something else. That's why we say, bring your focus back to what you desire, not what you're looking at. Now, that's not denial. We're not saying to deny that it's happening. We're saying to look at it, be aware of it, know what's going on, and then bring yourself back to what you would prefer. And then from that place, take action, whatever that action is to you. When you're in your highest vibration, you will be acting from your intuition or from your higher aspect, from your higher self. And it is your higher self that will give you the instructions to do the thing that will serve rather than not serve you when you are looking at what appears to be going wrong. In other words, if you then feel like from that perspective to go and protest, then do that. We want to be very clear about that, because we see many teachers saying, ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. Keep focusing on what you're doing. And they mean exactly what we've just said to you, but others look at it and say, well, they're just telling us to ignore it. Well, that's just stupid. But what they're actually saying is, see that it's over there, bring your focus back to what you want and take action from that place, because that's from your higher place. Therefore, the action that you take will have greater impact.
Thank you. So that leads me just to my last question. For those of us who are parents, the older and wiser we are raising all younger generations.
Well, we'd like to say that they are raising you, if we were to be honest.
That is very true. How do we as parents keep our children in their highest vibration and guide them through this current stage of humanity?
Well, the very first thing that we would advise you to do is to allow them to be what they are, even if you don't know what they are. In other words, allow them to be their creative selves, to be their creator self, and guide them at the same time. We're not suggesting that they can guide themselves, but rather when you're in your higher vibration, and again, we're saying to you, in your parenting, raise your vibrational frequency and mind your own vibration. When you're in your highest vibration, you serve from your highest self, you see. So whatever you are intuitively feeling to do for your child, then do that thing. Sometimes it might be disciplining them. And sometimes it might be allowing them to get away with things that other people would not let them get away with. And you'll be judged for that. But you have to mind your own vibration. And in doing so, teach your little one to be in their highest vibration and to mind their own vibration. In other words, to stop looking outside for approval. To come back to self, to know that self is the only approval you need. And you don't even need approval because self is perfect. To remember their perfection is what you need to allow them to see. or to remind them of. And you don't do this with words. You don't do it by telling them in every moment that they are perfect, that they've never done anything wrong, that they will never do anything wrong with your words. You do it with your vibration. In other words, in your highest vibration of love, you gift that love to everyone around you, and everyone around you raises up to that love, you see.
Is there any last messages or words that you wish to impart onto us before we end this session?
Again, we simply wish to, and it is our most important job here, you see, we wish to remind you of who you are. Remind you of who you are. Remind you of who you are. You created all of this. You chose to step onto the world as the being that you are. You chose to have this experience that you're having. You can change this experience in a moment by a new choice. Make a new choice today. If life is not working for you, what do you want it to look like? Focus on that and start to draw that into you. You are a magnificent creator being who can magnify themselves to the life they wish to be living. You've forgotten that. And even now, sometimes when you know it and then you forget it again, we want you to step more and more and more and more into knowing who you really are and start living that. Start living the life you came to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're very blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are you feeling?
I'm having a little trouble keeping my eyes open, actually. It's a little bit bright in here.
Giggle fest.
Yeah, I feel good.
You feel good? Is there anything that you want to say to everybody before we finish up?
How could I say anything more than that?
That's good.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
I always feel
I
like, because I'm human, you know, I still go into that, oh yeah, but I'm just a human being, which is quite funny, because I am, obviously, but I'm also, we're so much more. We are so much more. And if there's anything that I wanted to say, it would be this, that we all have these innate abilities to raise our vibration, to be in our highest, to communicate with other beings, to communicate with multidimensional beings, and also beings that live on this planet. Go swimming with dolphins. And I don't mean physically.
No, I know.
Astral travel, all of these sorts of things. The ability to bring through guidance groups and allow them to speak through our voice. That's about self-trust. So, which is, of course, when you raise your vibration, you start to step into that. But we have so many abilities, and there are hundreds and hundreds of abilities that we have beyond our six senses. And this evolution we're going through is when we get to start playing in those abilities. So whatever it is for you, even if it's just your intuition starting to tune in, get into it, start refining it, start, working with it, and the whole world will open up for you. I have a tear.
Yeah. Imagine how great the world would be if we all were tuned into our internal compass guidance system that was always guiding us to what's best for us and therefore everyone around us.
Beautiful.
Peace.
And we will. This is the thing. And this is something from me and the human being that I am absolutely 100% sure of. It's inevitable that we are heading towards peace. It really doesn't look like it right now, but it's inevitable. We are going there. It's part of the evolution that we're going through. We can't not get there. But it starts with me. It starts with me being peaceful and bringing my peace into the world and then sharing it with others who then start becoming peace, one person at a time.
Yeah, basically disrupting our own consciousness.
Beautiful. I love that expression. Yeah, that's perfect.
And then disrupting consciousness everywhere and hopefully showing the world how great it is to feel this good nearly all of the time.
Well, for people who do the work that I do or are psychic or intuitive or anything and like yourself, this is why it is so important that we get over our own crap and put ourselves out there. And yes, I'm speaking to you.
Yes, we need to get over our own crap.
That we step up to the plate and say, you know what, this is happening to me, and I'm just a normal human being, just like you. So it's okay to have these experiences. The more of us that speak about it and do it publicly, the more those who are hiding from it at the moment, because it, you know, like you and I'm going mad. You know, you think you're going mental. But if someone sees you and realizes, oh my gosh, that is a person just like me and doing this weird thing, maybe what I do is also okay.
It's so true, and it is okay. And like you and I have discussed before, us hiding it because of our own fear-based ego stuff is disrespecting the divine and the messages that the divine is trying to give other people through us, in whichever form that it's doing that, be it voice channeling, written channeling, writing books, speaking our truth,
playing the guitar authentic, and writing songs,
music, actors, everybody. It's the joy and love of what you create is the compass that you should be guided by, for you to give your messages that are coming from the divine out of you to the rest of the world in order to create this collective healing of consciousness. It's no good to keep it to yourself, because it's going to catch up with you eventually.
So I think a really good piece of advice at this point to finish off is to say, find people of like mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Find the people who get this stuff. Even if they don't get it the way you get it, find those people, be comfortable with it, start doing it out there in the world, even if it's just to one person who's accepting of you to start with, just so that you can shore up your self-trust, because it really comes down to self-trust. That's been my biggest learning. It's about trusting myself. Therefore, I can trust whatever's happening, whatever's coming through.
Excellent advice. Okay, so you saw it here today. This is Aleckson, who is Australia's leading channel, voice channeling all that is, who you got to get some juicy answers for some most common questions that humans have. That's the train toot toot. So we will be back, because I'm sure I want to ask all that is some really deep nitty-gritty questions on specific topics that you can use as guidance to raise your vibration.
Wonderful. I can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you.